And Mike Wheeler, Mark Cavalletta, the guys on the technology committee for getting us to this point. Okay. All right. Without objection, I will accept the agenda. I appreciate your patience. Next item is approval of minutes of May 9. Can I have a motion in favor, please?
So moved.
Thank you. Second? Have we got those guys? Will we able to record the motion in a second?
I'm sorry, who moved? You moved this
Jim.
second, Amy?
Jim Cameron.
Jim Cameron, thank you.
Okay, any corrections, additions? Okay. Then the minutes stand distributed. Next item is just some announcements. And well, I was trying to read our rules tonight, because it's distributed. And and the town council's not here, so I'll get in trouble later. Just an announcement, we have an initiative which you may have noticed coming in, slow down in town. And it's a joint venture with the police department to remind everybody to take it easy out there. Kids getting home from school, they're starting to drive around town again, and all of us just have to be extra careful. Next thing is that you may have noticed in the newspapers that Darien is considering buying an Hispanic contract by Great Island for a sum somewhere over $100 million. There will be, technically it's not on the agenda of the RTM yet. The Rules Committee puts it on the agenda. So the Rules Committee is meeting tomorrow night to act on calling a special meeting of the RTM to vote on the acquisition. And that most likely will be on June 27th. The other thing the rules include is assigning committees among all of you to investigate and report to the RTM on the agenda acquisition. The meeting tomorrow night is in North 206 Town Hall at 7:30 p.m. And it will be carried on Channel 79. And again, the main function for the Rules Committee is simply to call a special meeting of the RTM, to assign committees, and to set the agenda for the special meeting. I'll also mention that we will get as much information as we can possibly out to all of you about this. The object is to put as many cards on the table as we can so that you have the best picture of what this whole acquisition is all about. There is a time constraint. The contract expires if we don't act by June 28th. So that's why we have the RTM meeting on the 27th. On Thursday, April 9, the first selectman will have a special briefing, a public briefing on the acquisition. It'll be here in this room at 7 p.m. That's all I have for announcements. Next is a sense of the meeting vote for you, and I would read the sense of the meeting and ask for a motion in favor. It says, the Town of Darien Representative Town Meeting mourns the losses of 3 young adults in the past 2 months. We extend to their families our deep condolences and offer our strong support in their time of grief. Our thoughts and prayers are with the Darien community as we remember the important role of our children and the important role our children have in our families and in our lives. Can I have a motion in favor, please? Thank you. I see Ann up there, so.
Could you
And
say the name for the record? Just announce for the record who.
Ann Reed. And the second, there's Clara Sartori. There we go. Thank you. I will accept an acclamation vote. All of those in favor? Aye, please. Noes, I hear none. Abstentions, I see none. The motion passes. Next, we have item 22-14, sidewalk repair and replacement project for $752,000. Speaking on behalf of the Finance and Budget Committee, Jack Davis. Anybody who wants to speak tonight has to come and use this microphone up here. It's the only way we can.
I know I'm much better with the mask on than when I'm going to take it off, but I'm Jack Davis, District 3, and Chair of the RTM Finance and Budget Committee. I move RTM Resolution 21-14 appropriating $752,350 for the 2022 sidewalk repair and replacement project and authorizing the issuance of bonds and notes in the amount of $752,350 to meet said appropriation. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Who was the second? Can you announce?
Jim Cameron.
If
Yes, Clara.
I'm sorry, it's 22. I'm sorry. Correction. It's 22-14. That's the problem of copying things from one year to another. The next three bonding resolutions are the final part of the 2023 budget, where these items totaling $1,320,000 cents issuance costs were removed from their amounts needed to be raised from taxes. Bond Council determined to have three separate bonding resolutions for these capital projects. A couple of years ago, the Board of Finance decided to bond new sidewalk installation and sidewalk repair and replacement. Hence, this is consistent with that decision. The details surrounding the projects will be presented by other RTM committees. F&B focus will be on the financial aspects of the bonding transaction. The allocation of funds is $750,000 for the repair and replacement and $2,350 for issuance costs. Using the same calculations for the issuance of bonds for the HHR projects, the estimated annual incremental debt service cost will be approximately $50,000. This is the typical disclaimer you're going to hear on this. The actual amount will be dependent upon the interest rates, Board of Finance's decision on structure of the debt, level debt or level principal, deferred first principal, etc., and the actual premium received. That's going to be the disclaimer you're going to hear on all these. You'll further hear discussion with significant subsequent events on the HHR debt. The three bonding issues being presented are not affected by the issuance of the HHR debt or other future debt. The RTM Finance and Budget Committee met on April 6th and voted unanimously in favor of the resolution and recommends the same to the full RTM. Thank you.
Next, for Public Health and Safety, Mac Patrick.
Good evening. I'm Mac Patrick, Chair of Public Health and Safety. Our committee met on June 1st, 2022, with 10 of 15 members present, constituting a quorum. We discussed the two bonding issues regarding sidewalks, 22-14 sidewalk repair and replacement, and 22-15 sidewalk installation projects. I was able to get a little more pertinent information from Ed Gentile of the actual nature of the sidewalks, and I thought it'd be important to discuss those just so a little bit of background color. On the new sidewalks, it's going to be a new sidewalk on Old Kings Highway North from the Boston Post Road to the I-95 bridge, and on Heights Road from the Norotan Avenue to the Norotan Heights train station. As far as the sidewalk rehabilitation, there are sidewalks that are going to be repaired. It's Nearwater Lane, Leroy Avenue, West Avenue, Boston Post Road, Tokenique Road, and Mansfield Avenue. We voted with 10 of 15 members present unanimously to approve this. We did have a couple abstentions, and that was because those two members arrived late for the voting, but it was unanimous otherwise. We ask that you vote for this as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mac. Are there any other committees that wish to report out? Any town officials? Members of the RTM? Yes, please. If you want to speak, yeah.
I'm just curious if this was not planned for in the budget, or why it's a separate bond issue, or is this something that's just come up all of a
Do me
sudden?
a favor, just announce what district
Oh,
you're
I'm
from.
sorry, Priscilla Wong, District 1.
All three of these capital items were in the budget. But during the budget process, it was determined that rather than paying for these through taxes, that we would bond for them. That's a Board of Finance decision. So because it takes some time from when we do to prepare the bond documents and everything and get them out, it was decided not to do the bond resolutions on the night of the budget and move that to June. So that's why we're doing these on June. We've done this in the past. So all three projects that we're going to talk about, the 750, the 120, and the 450 for the track, all of them were within the budget. When looking at it, it was decided to bond them, so they were removed from the budget. So we didn't have to raise taxes for them. So I hope that answers your question.
Any other comments from the floor? I see none. Any comments from the public? We ready to vote? All those in favor, please rise. Raise your hands at home if you're remote. Okay, opposed? See none. Abstentions? I see none. Do we have any electronic opposition? Okay. Excuse me. Next is,
One moment, let me just tell it.
okay.
22-15
Do we have the count electronically? I'm looking down here at my... Abstention. I only vote. We can't count the votes? Why wouldn't, if we had no problem at all? I don't get it. So, I guess, do I announce that? And do the clerk announce it? Yeah, I mean, I can say that. We're having trouble recording the votes from those who are online. We're trying to fix it. So that's what the delay is. Oh, there's the poll. Just saw it right in front of me. At least I just got asked to vote. Now, please, if you are remote, please, and you have received a request to vote, please vote.
What's the verbiage? Have to make an amendment to the resolution. That doesn't matter. We have to do a formal amendment to the resolution. We're not. The next meeting is straight on, and I promise you don't want to. Because the pro tem just presented our voting. done by kindergartners. The pro who actually bought these is going to show me the real one. And they're foolish to have not thought that I would have had it. Yeah. Do you have it written out? If you can, yeah, that's all I need is what it is. No, can we just take the computer and move it up there? Okay. Wayne, can I grab you for 1 second? You, yeah. I want to make sure the report's done right. That's right. I'm for doing it. That's right. I'm for doing it tonight. Okay. The state grant authority, whoever, wants specific verbiage in our resolution regarding the grant. So we have the verbiage. I'm going to make an amendment to the resolution adding this verbiage. Okay, I just want to let you know what I'm doing. Okay. I had a feeling that that was going to be the case. Okay.
This meeting is now live on Channel 79 and on YouTube.
At least to amendments, at least. I play with Robbins up. Yes. Right, super. Because I don't, when I see this screen, yeah, if I see it, turn around. There's only about 4 things I can do. It's not. But right now, what the problem is that some of our people that are migrants, which means we did not have 50 people here. This is, look, I appreciate what you've done now, but virtually look. And we have resolutions that we have to get done. And I like the way it looks. Besides that, I think you have special. Are there 7 people who are really confident that we can convince that this was pushing things? How about we start 4? Can I make that?
Yeah, well, we didn't, so I'll make it today.
I'm going to make a mini announcement here. We may have more than 43 now because I saw a couple people walk in. But we should recount. But we did not have 50 members here, and we appear to have lost our quorum that's online. So we need 50 members here to transact business. So if there are people here that live close by that are not here, and we can convince them to do us a favor and come in by calling your friends and even those people that you don't like, to come in here, it would be greatly appreciated so we don't need to have yet another special meeting. Thank you.
Okay, folks, we're going to keep going. We believe that under Robert's rules, we have established that this item 22-14 has passed. So we are going to move to the next item, which is 22-15. Speaking on behalf of the Finance and Budget Committee, Jack Davis.
First of all, Clara, thank you, because I did copy this from last year's bonding, and apparently I kept 21 there. I'm Jack Davis, District 3, Chair of the RTM Finance and Budget Committee. I move 22-12, appropriating $120,375 for the sidewalk installation project and authorizing the issuance of bonds and notes in the amount of $120,375 to meet said appropriation. Is there a second? I have Ralph as these. Yes, I said 22-15. If there's no objection, I propose to waive the reading of the resolution. This is the second of 3 bonding resolutions that were part of the fiscal year 23 budget. As previously mentioned, a couple years ago, the Board of Finance decided to bond new sidewalk and sidewalk repair and replacement, and as such, this is consistent with that decision. Details surrounding the project have been presented by Public Health and Safety. F&B's focus, again, is on the bonding of the resolution. The allocation of funds is $120,000 for the repair and installation, with $375 issuance costs. Using the same calculations for the HHR projects, the estimated annual incremental debt is approximately $8,000. Again, the disclaimer. The actual amount will be dependent upon the interest rates, Board of Finance's decision on the structure of the debt, level debt versus level principal, deferred first payment, etc., and the actual premium received. The RTM Finance and Budget Committee met on April 6th and voted unanimously in favor of this resolution and recommends the same to the full RTM. Thank you.
Okay, any other committees? Okay, I see none. Town officials? None. Members of the RTM? See none. Public? I see none. Looks like we're ready to vote. All those in favor, please rise. If you're at home, please vote on the quick poll. Hopefully, if you're having trouble hearing us, you can go to channel 79 and hear the proceedings, or YouTube. I believe we do. Let me know when I can move it forward.
Yeah, well, actually, it's the ones that you're wearing there allow you to breathe out. But the not, the KN95s just can't do it. And unfortunately, I have a procedure I gotta do in August, so I can't afford to have something, because I've already delayed it for 8 days. So. Can we move to the next item while we're counting? Seth?
Passed.
Okay,
Next.
next.
Next item, that item passed. Next item is 22-16, Darien High Track and Jump Areas. On behalf of Finance and Budget, Jack Davis.
I'm Jack Davis, District 3 Chair of the RTM Finance and Budget Committee. I move RTM Resolution 22-16 appropriating $451,110 for the Darien High School Track and Jump Areas project and authorizing the issuance of bonds and notes in the amount of $451,110 to meet said appropriation. Is there a second? I see Patty. If there's no objections, I propose to waive the reading of the resolution. This is the third of the 3 bonding resolutions that were part of the fiscal year 2023 budget. The detail of the project will be presented by the RTM Public Health and Safety. The financial aspects of it, the allocation of funds is $450,000 for the repair and replacement of that track area, and $1,110 of issuance costs. Using the same calculations for the issuance of bonds for the HHR project, the estimated annual incremental debt service cost will be approximately $32,000. Again, the disclaimer. The actual amount will be dependent upon the interest rates, Board of Finance's decision on structure of the debt issue, level debt versus level principal, deferred first payment, etc., and the actual premium received. The 3 bonding issues being presented have not been affected by the issuance of HHR debt or other potential future debt. I have one final note. It's my understanding that the Board of Ed Director of Facilities, Mike Lynch, is retiring at the end of this month. Mike's knowledge and expertise of the entire spectrum of facilities never ceased to amaze me, from the very detail to the highest level project. And whilst we may have quibbled on a point or two during the years, I want to say to Mike that it has been an honor, privilege, and pleasure to work with him all these years. I will miss that, and I'm going to miss Mike, and I wish him the best in his retirement. And I'm just wondering if we might be able to give a little bit of a round of applause for all the service he's done. And knowing Mike, he's going to be definitely embarrassed that I did this. The RTM Finance and Budget Committee met on April 6th and voted unanimously in favor of this resolution and recommends the same to the full RTM. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. On behalf of Public Health and Safety, Mac Patrick.
Hi, once again, Mac Patrick, Chair of Public Health and Safety. Our committee met on June 1st with 10 of 15 members present, constituting a quorum to discuss the replacement of the Darien High School track. I guess it's Mike Lynch's night because he gave me some very good information on the background of the track. It was evaluated back in 2016, and at that time it was determined that repairing the track and making minor repainting would buy some time. Those repairs were done in 2017, and that extended life for approximately 4 to 7 years. In 2020, another evaluation revealed at most there were 3 years left on the surface, and that's kind of where we are now. It's time. The track needs to be replaced. But again, we're really talking here about the bonding. We voted with 8 in favor and 2 abstentions to approve the bonding. We ask you to do the same. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mac. Other committees? Okay. Members of the RTM, comments? Town officials? Public? Seeing none, we're ready to vote. All those in favor, please rise. Those at home, just go on the quick poll there.
Be my guest. It takes time to warm up. No, start now. Because this is how I presented the budget. Except for most people didn't realize this. My papers that I had here was only to move the resolution. The rest of this was just, I had the notes, I knew what it was. I could just explain these budgets. Okay, so for this resolution, okay, we're only, for the Henley one, is it exactly how this is? So that in the Henley, we're mentioning Henley Homes and Royals? Oh, yeah, this is the chocolate. Yeah, as one attorney told me very early. I'm missing school. So this is the state grant, what do they call themselves?
Okay, so that passed.
Good. Okay, the item passed. Next item is 22-17, appropriation and bond authorization for Inley renovation. Speaking on behalf of the Finance and Budget Committee, Jack Davis.
We're trying to work on something here.
Welcome to the crowd, right?
I'm Jack Davis. I'm Jack Davis, District 3, and Chair of the RTM Finance and Budget Committee. I move RTM Resolution 22-17 to increase an appropriation for the planning, design, and renovation of the Hindley Elementary School from $1.4 million to $26 million, and to authorize the issuance of bonds and notes to finance the appropriation in the amount of $26 million. Is there a second? I see Louisa. And if I'm going to continue, I need my glasses. The Office of School Construction Grant and Review has asked us to include in all three of the next resolutions some additional verbiage. So to that end, I make a motion to add, after the third whereas in 22-17, the following. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the representative town meeting of the town of Darien authorizes the Darien Public Schools to apply to the Commissioner of Administrative Services and to accept or reject a grant for the renovations or alterations and expansion of the Hindley Elementary School. 2, now, therefore, be it resolved that the 2021 Hindley Homes Royal Schools Building Committee is hereby established as a building committee with regard to the renovations or alterations and expansion at the Hindley Elementary School, and we'll forgive them for not knowing how to spell Holmes. And 3, now therefore be it resolved that the representative town meeting of the town of Darien hereby authorizes at least the preparation of schematic drawings and the outline specifications for the renovations or alterations and expansion at the Hindley Elementary School. Do I have a second? You got him?
Just announce the second, please, for the radio audio.
Okay. Michael is the second.
Jack, just for a second, have we got the wording on this?
That's what we were just adding words as amended. So if we approve the amendment, then
No, I understand that, but do you actually have?
We will send an email to Wayne with the amendment.
Okay.
And we'll do it, and it's up there just in case anybody wants to scribble it down, which I don't think anybody wants to. Okay, so we first have to vote on the amendment. And so I'll hand the floor back over to Seth. We have to vote on the amendment.
Yes. Amendment first, then the item. Yes. Oh, lovely. I've been given permission to do the amendment by voice vote. All those in favor? Aye. Noes? Don't you dare. Amendments? I see none. I hear no votes. Passes unanimously. Now, the next step is to take
My report.
your report.
First, I'd like to thank Wayne that we can do that by voice vote. This is the first of 3 appropriation and bonding resolutions for the HHR project. We'll address and vote on each of the appropriation modifications separately as required by the state. So how's this going to work tonight? F&B will address the financials for the project, review of debt and debt service, and attempt to answer certain questions that we have heard arising at presentations to the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, or other meetings, so we don't have to ask them again. Next, the RTM Education Committee will provide their report on all 3 schools and, in fact, the vote on all 3 at that time. After the first 2 RTM committee reports, the HHR team will present a full and greater detail for the overall project, dealing with all 3 schools. Then we'll vote on this first resolution, after which F&B will return for the next resolution, where we will move the resolution, move the amendment, voice vote on the amendment, move the vote on the resolution as amended, and we'll just give some brief financials on it. And we'll do that a 3rd time as well. And that's how we're going to move this along. I want to talk about a couple of things. F&B's review consisted of understanding the approach taken by the committee to determine cost estimates, understanding the various contingencies built into the cost estimates, comparison of contingencies or other major costs to the Oxbridge Building Committee, review of debt and debt service based upon the approval of these 3 bonding resolutions, and review of potential state grants and unknowns. F&B's review did not include challenging the cost of steel, materials, architecture cost, or other building committee assumptions, as those are well beyond the expertise of the committee, and we didn't want to waste anyone's time there, no matter how smart we think we are. As will be noted within the HHR committee presentation, the State Grant Department requires full estimates, approval of the appropriations, and bonding resolutions prior to June 30th to be included in the fiscal year 23 state grant review. Delay of providing all of these would result in a full year delay for initiating any work on these long overdue projects. Now, I can report that the approach taken by the HHR committee is consistent with the approach taken by the Oxbridge Building Committee. There are some minor differences based upon the detail, but all of the 3 buildings that we are going to be talking about basically have good bones, and thus it was determined that they could be renovated and they did not need a total rebuild. That's why they're being renovated. So hopefully that answers the question. They got good bones. Greater detail, again, will be provided by the HHR committee. So, costs were basically broken down, and we've had a better detail based upon some of the estimates that they got. And understand, nobody likes giving estimated costs before you have time to really figure this out. But since we have to do this to get it into the state so we can get approved, because we can't work on it until the state approves it, you gotta sometimes do what the state asks. Costs were broken down into several major categories, including construction costs, construction manager fees, construction management reimbursables, building bond and insurances, contingencies, and owner's estimated soft costs, which would include architecture, environmental and testing, traffic studies, bond fees, owner's contingency, and a number of other numerous projects, including printing and the like. For Henley, the costs are estimated to be, and please don't add all these up because I did a lot of rounding. Construction costs were about are estimated to be 17.8 million. Construction management fees of about 550,000. Builders' bond and insurances about 330,000. Contingencies about 2 million and change, with an escalation, which that'll be explained, 12 months to bid, about 1.4 million. Construction management contingency, which is about 3%, totaling about 600,000. And owner's estimated soft costs, which I explained, about 2.8 million, which includes owner's contingency, about a 1.144 million, and bond issuance costs of 130,000 already built in. As such, when you add all these up, without my estimates in that, they come to a total of $25,711,282, which we gracefully round up to 26 million, which adds basically another 280,000 into contingency. To avoid duplication, the HHR committee will provide a greater detail on what these comparisons are to the Ox Ridge, the percentages, as well as why they, and the rationale for those differences, as well as the contingencies. Total contingencies approximate 3.3 million, or a little over 12%, and you're going to see they're going to differ for each of these three buildings. The RTM has already approved the 1.4 million for this project, and what we're really doing is amending the first project. I want to spend a little bit of time on the grant project. Grants are allocated based upon the town, based upon renovation, and there's a lot of different things. So if the school's classroom size is supposed to be 900 square feet, and we build one for 1,000 square feet, we're not getting reimbursed for that extra 100. That's also occurred in Ox Ridge, because sometimes we're going to believe that a hallway needs to be a little bit bigger than what the state is recommending. And we want them to build the school that we think we need, not the school that the state thinks we need, because otherwise we'll be back again, and we don't want to be. So for the town of Darien, the range is between 5 to 20%. Now, the one thing I can promise is we're not getting 20%. Part of the calculations from what you're going to hear, we have not included any grant funding in these estimates. If somebody asks you what the cost of all these three schools are, the cost in the appropriation is $77.5 million. That's the cost. We would have to appropriate that amount anyway, because otherwise they couldn't spend that amount, regardless of what they get back. But similar to Ox Ridge, where I believe we passed a bond for $63 million based upon the funds that have come in from the premiums of when we issued, or the grants that's coming in, which may be approximately 8%, instead of issuing future debt, we're using that grant money to finish out the project. And we anticipate that something like that will occur, but we're not putting it into the resolution or the cost at this time. It's just too much unknown. Now, the other thing of why we're doing three schools is that each of these schools' grants will be different. It's based upon the amount of the future enrollment and the size of the schools, what we're doing for each school. So we may find that we have three different grant amounts coming back for the three different resolutions that we're doing. And so we're going to do three bonding. However, when we issue them, we can combine. And at least for planning, it is planned that we will be issuing in 2023 $25,840,000. Bond issue in 2024 will be $25,830,000. And bond issue in 2025 will be $25,830,000. Calculated incremental debt service, these are based upon 20-year, and schools can go to 30-year, but right now these are estimated at 20-year. For 2024 is $633,000. For 2025, the incremental amount is $2,701,000. For 2026, $4,783,000. You've noticed that it's been growing by about $2 million a year. And at 2027 and there throughout, it'll be approximately $6.2 million. Again, the standard disclaimer. The actual amount will be dependent upon the interest rates, Board of Finance decision on the structure of the debt, level versus unleveled, deferred, whether or not it's 20, 30-year, or the actual premiums received. In addition, we're talking about issuing debt in 2024 and 2025. And if anyone really knows what that interest rate is going to be, let's have a conversation afterwards, because we can all make it a financial bet that nobody's going to know. So we have some numbers that have been used, but they are going to change. I also have to talk about the elephant in the room. Being an old accountant, both old and have done accounting, FASB says there's an accounting concept and principle that requires disclosure of material subsequent events. As those who were upstairs heard, Great Island is currently on the table. It's about $100 million, not counting the actual cost and the other costs associated with the issuance, legal, and other things like that that may be bonded. That debt will be issued before any of these three tranches of debt will be issued. As such, depending upon whether or not we retain our AAA rating, which we may not because of the size of the debt, these numbers may change. If we do 30-year instead of 20-year, 30-year costs more. So again, these are estimates, and none of what I just mentioned, including the elephant in the room, has changed the opinion of the Finance and Budget Committee as to whether or not these projects should move forward. And we're voting on the projects, not on Great Island. So the F&B, I should mention the Board of Finance, approved the appropriation and issuance of debt on May 16th. Board of Finance approved on May 17th. And the RTM Finance and Budget Committee met on May 24th and voted unanimously in favor of this resolution and recommends the same to the full RTM. And I promise you, that is the longest of the other two reports you're going to hear. Thank you.
Next, speaking on behalf of the Education Committee, Ed Washaka.
Thanks. I'm Ed Washaka, District 3, Chairman of the Education Committee. The RTM Education Committee met virtually on Wednesday, June 1st, with 13 of 17 members present. Members of the Hindley Homes and Royal Building Committee attended the meeting, shared a presentation, and answered questions. Jennifer Charneski, Town Finance Director, also attended our meeting and shared a presentation. The Finance and Budget Committee's report focused on the funding and overall cost of the renovation program. Our report will focus on the educational objectives and benefits of the HHR improvements. While our committee's focus was on the scope of the educational improvements and the benefits to the district, we also had many questions about the cost and funding of these programs. Many of you, no doubt, have similar questions, some of which were highlighted by Jack, including why are we doing 3 schools simultaneously? Why didn't we do tear downs as opposed to renovation? And how does the cost of these projects impact town finances overall? The HHR committee and Ms. Charneski did a great job of addressing these questions for us, and their presentation that follows that follows will be helpful to you all. The HHR committee was formed to pursue renovations and upgrades at the 3 older elementary schools with 4 primary objectives: eliminate the portable classrooms, renovate and modernize library spaces, correctly size the classroom spaces, and upgrade outdated mechanical, electrical, and environmental systems. We are renovating and improving 3 schools for close to the cost of building 1 brand new school, as we're doing with Oxbridge. The existing HHR schools are in better physical shape than Oxbridge was, so renovations, additions, and improvements are a cost-effective way to achieve our educational goals. The design changes and additions will allow the district to eliminate all the portable classrooms. Hooray! The library spaces are changing because the way teachers and students use libraries has changed. The physical space in the libraries is due for renovation, but it makes more sense to make configuration changes where appropriate so that these spaces can maximize the benefits available to our young learners, especially when it comes to technology. Classroom space will change, in some cases to give the district flexibility, and in other cases to meet Board of Ed classroom size goals. Current classrooms are in some cases too small for the current class sizes. Facility upgrades vary by school, but include installation of energy-efficient LED lighting, upgrading electrical capacity, replacing or converting boilers for hot water, upgrading or installing HVAC systems, and updating the roof to allow for future solar installations. These construction programs will run concurrently at the 3 schools, with construction starting in June 2023 and finishing in August 2025. Some committee members highlighted interest rate uncertainty and expressed concern that overall costs could be greater if interest rates continue to rise. We discussed overall debt levels for the town, including the impact on the mill rate, especially with regard to other projects, whether small ones like the track we are approving tonight or large investments like Great Island that have not yet been approved. We are appreciative of the HHR committee, and we expect they will select a capable construction manager to successfully execute on this complex endeavor. The Education Committee voted unanimously to approve the appropriation and bond authorization for the Hindley renovation of $26 million and asked that the RTM do the same. And I'm going to also say now that I'm not going to come back up here for the other 2 the other 2 resolutions. I'm just going to tell you that we voted unanimously on those resolutions as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Other committees? Okay, town officials. On behalf of HHR Committee, Chris Price. Thank you.
Excuse me, I'm just going to clear some things off of here before we get started. Hi, everybody. I'm Chris Price. I'm the chair of the Hindley Homes and Royal Building Committee. Ed and Jack sort of stole my thunder. They covered a lot of the details, so I'm going to move through a lot of that stuff fairly quickly and try not to be repetitive. With me here this evening are a number of my committee members. Let's see if we can get this to work. Yeah, the head of technology, Jill McCammon, who is also the vice chair of the committee and also sits on the Board of Education. Dave Martin, who sits on the Board of Finance. 2 of my committee members, Jamison Riley and Dave Kerwar, are here as well. And I thank those guys for showing up. The other committee members, as you can see on the slide, Sarah Newman, who is also on the Board of Selectmen. Sarah Newman, who's on the Board of Selectmen, I didn't recognize her with her mask. Randy Giraldo, Paul Harding, and Frank Schuster. So I thank you guys. I thank you guys for coming this evening. And then we have a number of ex officio members on the committee. Alan Adley is with us, the superintendent of the schools. Duke Deneen, who's the head of the Board of Education, is here this evening. You'll see the list behind me on the slide of the other ex officio members. It includes folks who are part of the various town departments, as well as PTO representatives and the school principals. We'll go fairly quickly through what the charge that was given to the committee, talk a little bit about some aspects of the project that are common to all three of the schools, and then talk a little bit about aspects of the project specific to each of the schools on a school-by-school basis, and then talk about, in more specificity, the appropriation request, how the numbers were arrived at. David Martin will come up and present on specifically how we arrived at each of the numbers for the appropriations for each of the three schools. The slide on the committee charge, please. The charge specifically is up on the slide. The Board of Selectmen put the committee together, named it the 2021, even though we really first got started in 2022. The key language in here was that the committee is authorized and charged to renovate in accordance with educational specifications, Hindley, Holmes, and Royal Elementary Schools, and the educational specs that are referred to are those that were approved by the Board of Education in May of 2021. The educational specs are publicly available for folks to read. They're 20-ish pages plus per school, and really lay out in a fair amount of detail the goals and the scope of the projects. What does that charge mean when you break it down and really translate it into what we need to do as a committee? And again, Ed really hit a lot of those points. First and foremost, eliminating the portables, renovating, or in some cases, replacing, tearing down, and building new libraries and global learning commons, right-sizing, resizing the classrooms, both the general classrooms and some of the special subject classrooms, some of which are in the portables now and will be moved into the buildings, and then upgrade a number of outdated systems, mechanical in particular, electrical, adding HVAC, working on the building envelopes, also doing, in some cases, a fair amount of site work on the various campuses. Next slide on why we're renovating and not building new. This is the next series of slides, and we'll go fairly quickly here because, as I said, Ed hit a lot of the really salient points. These are points that are kind of common to each of to the project as a whole. The good news is that the schools, even though old, some of them were originally built in the 30s and 40s, 1930s and 40s. Even though they're old, it's still more cost-effective to do renovations than it is to replace these schools. They are well-built, as Jack noted, saying they had good bones. And yet another shout-out to Mike Lynch and his team. They have been maintained at a very, very high standard. He keeps these schools running efficiently. And note that the last time these schools were renovated was 1996. So those renovations are very much at or past their useful life. But Mike and his team have kept these schools running, like I said, at a very high level. And ultimately, as Ed noted, the cost of renovation, because the basic framework that we have at each of the campuses is good enough, we don't need to build brand new schools, so it's ultimately more cost effective to do 3 renovations than to do 3 new constructions. But the flip side of that is we really need to get rid of the portable classrooms. They're past their useful life, they need to be replaced. And also, I think, people would feel a lot better with the kids in the schools than outside in the portables. Why do we need to renovate our libraries, or in the case of 2 of the schools, take down and replace the libraries? Again, the libraries at Hindley and Royal were done in the 1970s. They're past their useful life. The interior of the Holmes Library, it sits right next to the gymnasium. There's a classroom in there. There's a lot of traffic through that room. When kids are using the gym, the library is difficult to use. And frankly, the way libraries are used these days are different. And I've noted this when I presented to the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance. I don't recall going into the library when I was in elementary school. Now kids use the libraries. They're called different things: Learning Center, Global Learning Commons. They're very flexible spaces, a lot of technology. The kids are moving around. The furniture is flexible and movable. It's modular. The teachers are moving around. The kids are collaborating. It's a whole different learning environment. And so we want to bring, and that's frankly the kind of library, the kind of center that the kids at Ox Ridge are getting in the new school, in the new school on that campus. Next slide on the classrooms. As noted, we need to evaluate and right size the classrooms. Some of the classrooms, frankly, are just too small. The state sets standards for the classroom sizes. Some of the classrooms need to be expanded so that they meet the state specs. Again, the way classrooms are being used, if you consider that some of these schools were built in the 30s and 40s and then renovated along their lives, you know, the classrooms aren't used the same way they were in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. Again, I remember, you know, row upon row of desks with a teacher up in the front with a blackboard. You go into modern elementary schools now, and the kids are working in small groups. They're working on laptops. The teachers are moving around the rooms. We need to optimize the classrooms so that the kids can learn in the best way possible. We want to have some consistency so that the different grades have right-sized classrooms for their grades, and we want the classrooms in these three schools to be comparable in terms of size and technology and power to the newer schools like Tokenique and Ox Ridge. And we need to take into account the enrollment projections for the school district. One of the things the state makes us do as part of submitting our grant submission is to build to the high end of our 8-year enrollment projections. And the Board of Education and the school district work together to come up with what those projected enrollments are. And what we're using is, for purposes of the design phase of this project, assuming that you guys approve the appropriations, is to build to the high end of the 8-year projection. And those projections are included in the educational specs, as I noted, which are public record. Systems are another piece of it. A big part of this project is going to be behind the walls, if you will. It's going to be stuff you don't see. There's going to be a lot of really, really pleasing new work done at these schools. Hopefully there's going to be outdoor spaces, like we noted, new libraries. But a lot of the work is going to be systems. It's going to be upgrading heating systems. It's going to be adding air conditioning. It's going to be improved power, improved lighting, improved security. You're not going to see a lot of that, but it's going to be there. And ultimately, I think, we think that this is going to result in operating efficiencies for the schools, especially when it comes to things like heating, air conditioning, and ventilation. Also going to bring in a lot more fresh air into the schools, a lot more natural light. The schools are going to be designed to be able to have solar panels attached to the roofs, even though part of our charge is not to actually put the solar panels on. There are state programs available for that, but the schools are going to be designed to accommodate that. Another thing as part of it's really kind of wrapped up as part of systems. As we noted, there's going to be some site work evaluations on a number of the schools. We'll talk specifically about Hindley in a second, but at all three of the schools, there's going to be some evaluation of things like traffic patterns, bus loops, entrances and exits to major roads, et cetera. So from here, why don't we shift to some of the specifics on each of the three schools, starting with Hindley. The scope of the project on Hindley, you'll hear a common theme here, and one that we like saying, which is we're going to remove and demolish the portables. On Hindley, we're going to demolish and build a new library. We're going to renovate a number of the program spaces, some of which will be no longer used because those uses are being moved to Ox Ridge. In particular, the developmental learning center, is being moved to the Ox Ridge School. So there's going to be space at Hindley available to be repurposed. Upgrading the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and technology systems. And then, as part of the design project, studying a number of things. One, it's been noted that there's a flooding problem adjacent to the Hindley School. So one of the things that's going to be studied is the drainage and the stormwater runoff at that school, thinking of ways that can be addressed to the school property boundary. We recognize that there are other agencies that are going to be involved in that, and so we're going to have to coordinate with them. For example, Public Works, Planning and Zoning. The other thing that's going to be studied at Hindley is the possibility of a second entrance and exit off of the post road. Again, that's going to require the involvement of the town and also require the involvement of the state, in particular to the Department of Transportation. But we're going to see if it's practical and can be done in a cost-effective way. You'll see that on the right side of the slide, some comparisons, some facts and figures between the school in its current configuration and what it is that we're planning to do as a result of the renovation. So you can look at those. Next on homes, again, demolish the portables, add classrooms. Homes, we're not going to demolish and rebuild the library. We're going to renovate the existing library, renovate a number of the specialized spaces for some of the special classes, upgrade infrastructure. We're going to look at the possible expansion of parking, and we're going to study the possibility of using the property that's adjacent to the home school to the north, what's called the Curtis property. That's being surveyed now. We're going to try to determine if that is usable based on whether it's wetlands, based on its elevation, slope, things like that. If it can be used, we'll then have discussions with the town about and the public schools about how best to use that and see if that can be incorporated into the project. On Royal, next slide please, remove the portables, adding classrooms. Royal's the school where we most specifically have to look at right-sizing some of the classrooms. So our architect is looking at hopefully some creative solutions to expand the footprint of some of the classrooms. Again, upgrading the infrastructure and the systems, and possibly extending the bus loop and adding some additional parking. In terms of time frame, the hope is we've selected an architect. We hope in the next, hopefully this week, by the end of this week, that we will have selected a construction manager. The idea is we've now begun with the architect the design process on the schools. We're starting to have weekly meetings with the architect on that, with some of the various constituencies that are going to have input, namely the public schools and then soon the principals. The idea would be that we get our necessary approvals for the work, working together with the town over the course of the summer and into the fall. Then assuming we get the state approval of the project, construction starts right around this time next year as the kids leave school in the spring of 2023. Construction would be going on through the summer of 2025 so that the kids can go into the renovated schools in the beginning of the school year for August of 2025. Keep in mind, we're going to try to do these as 3 projects at the same time, and we're going to try to do these projects while the kids are in school. While we're going to do a lot of the work in the summer, there is going to be work done during the school year, and a very, very important component of the selection process for both the architects and the construction managers is understanding how they're going to do that, and getting comfortable that that's going to be done in such a way that it minimizes to the absolute extent possible any disruption on the kids' education. Jack went into a lot of detail on the state grant process. I'll pivot to that. I don't want to spend a ton of time reiterating that. Jack's presentation was very, very detailed and very thorough. The key piece of it that I'll just emphasize again is that we need to appropriate the full amount of the estimate for each of these schools, and we're doing it somewhat backwards. In a perfect world, we wouldn't be asking for money until we knew exactly how much we needed, where we had design drawings, where we had bids, where we knew, how much the materials were going to cost. That's a year from now, but if we wait for a year, we lose a year on the project, and so the state requires you to submit your grant proposal, your grant submission request for the full amount that the town is willing to pay, and we're doing that based on very, very educated guesses based off of conceptual designs by the architect. And we're going to do our very, very best to manage to those estimates as we get going. Obviously, everybody knows where inflation is these days. People have heard the stories about supply chains, costs of materials, but we're going to try to spend only what is needed. We're not going to, we're going to use a very robust bidding system. The architects and the contractors all have teams of people who are focused very closely on the bidding process so that we can get the most bang for our buck. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of unknowns. These are renovations, right? In a lot of ways, you have more control when you're building a new school, right? You start with a hole in the ground and everything you're putting up is new. These are renovations, and so they're going to start taking walls down, and conditions that you may have assumed were in place may be different than what you assumed. So some things may be more difficult, more complicated, more expensive. That we did the estimating based on the conditions that we know, but not everything is complete in terms of surveys and studies. And so, these are the first extensive renovations to these schools, like I said, since 1996. So we'll do our very best to stay within the guidelines that we have. I'm going to turn it over to Dave Martin, who's a member of the Board of Finance, as I noted, and really took over the portion of this process, coming up with how we arrived at the amounts that we're requesting as part of these appropriation resolutions. So, Dave, thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
I think most of you know me. I'm David Martin. I serve on the Board of Finance. I'm going to reiterate a couple of things that Jack said off the bat because they're important. The estimates that we have are preliminary. The designs are yet evolving. So the designs are subject to change, and our estimates are based on the initial designs. Secondly, and very important, is that the estimates that we have are before any potential reimbursement from the state. We do expect some reimbursement from the state. It's just we're not able to give you a hard number on what that estimate is right now, which I'll explain in a little more detail later. As part of the architect selection process, we narrowed it down to 3 architectural firms, and each of those architectural firms provided us with a charrettes, which is a fancy word for preliminary designs, and as part of those designs, they provided cost estimates. We also received cost estimates from O&G, who is the consultant that the committee retained to guide us through the state grant process. They happen to be the construction manager on the Oxridge project as well at this point in time. The level of detail that we received in the cost estimates from the architects was not as great as the level of detail that the Oxridge committee received. There were differences in the contingency rates, escalation rates, how certain costs were classified as either construction costs or soft costs, and the variation in the estimates from one architectural firm to another made comparison somewhat difficult. Ultimately, we felt most comfortable with the estimates that we received from O&G, and that was for four reasons. First, the O&G estimate contained the most detailed estimate of the component cost by far. Secondly, the group maintains its own independent database of costs based on projects that it has been involved in, either bidding or managing. So that provided the best estimated update for current costs for projects that are ongoing at this time. O&G's estimate was derived independently and without access to the estimates that the architects provided. So they have, and lastly, O&G has a group that specializes in doing cost estimates only. That's why they did their estimate completely independent. So Jack Davis had actually asked me to look at how the HHR cost estimates vary from Ox Ridge estimates. If you haven't seen them, there are estimates there are contingencies built into the estimates for the design, for the construction manager, and for the owner's contingency. Two of those contingencies are the same for both Henley Homes Royal and for Ox Ridge. The construction manager contingency at 3% and the owner's contingency or 5% are the same as the contingencies that were used for the Ox Ridge project. The design contingency is slightly higher for Henley Homes and Royal. That came in at 10% versus 8% for Ox Ridge. We think that's appropriate because we are looking at 3 separate projects here, and ultimately the design needs to tie in closely to the existing conditions of each of the existing buildings so that it feels like one seamless experience for the kids throughout. So that's the big one. For those of you that aren't familiar, there is what is referred to as a contingency in the estimates. The contingency, the escalation in the estimates. The escalation is really designed to protect us from inflation from now until the subcontractor bids are all submitted and firmed up, right? And we know that in this period of inflation that escalation should be higher than what it was for Ox Ridge. So based on the database that ONG has, the escalation that's built into the contract is 8%. The escalation that was built into the Ox Ridge contract was 4.5%. So that brings me to the reimbursement potential from the state. Jack mentioned to you that the reimbursement rate is 20.71% for what the state deems to be renovation and extension or alteration projects. But there are a couple of adjustments that happen to that reimbursement rate. One, Jack already alluded to, that affected Ox Ridge, which is a square foot calculation. The state has a formula that they utilize to determine what is appropriate and what is not appropriate. We think that based on current preliminary designs, we think 2 of the schools are going to be subject to some haircut for that portion. And then there's a concept of eligible versus ineligible costs. And the state has a methodology that they go through to determine what is eligible versus ineligible. But I'll give you a super short idea of what that might be. If they have to pull down the tiles in one half of the ceiling in a hallway to run a new HVAC vent, the state may only deem replacement of the tiles that go where the new HVAC vent was as eligible. But if you've ever seen an acoustic ceiling tile, if you put up new ones next to old ones, the old ones look hideous. So the plan will be to replace all of the ceiling tiles in a situation like that. And there are numerous other examples that I could give you, but we'll skip over that. Suffice it to say that eligible costs will be different from the ineligible costs, so that the reimbursement rate will be less. Last thing I will say is because the designs are different for each school and certain costs will be deemed eligible versus ineligible at each school, you can probably expect that the reimbursement rate will be different for each school. Suffice it to say, we'll get something back, so the total numbers that we're asking you to approve tonight will ultimately be less. But as Jack pointed out, the state requires that we approve the full amount with the understanding that we'll receive some reimbursement. So Jack went over the numbers briefly. I'll just reiterate them. Based on that, we came up with estimates of $25.76 million for Henley, which is rounded up to $26 million. 23.6 for Homes, which is rounded up to $24 million, and 27.39 for Royal, which is rounded up to $27.5 million. The Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, RTM Finance and Budget, and Education have all approved these estimates, and we ask that the full RTM do the same this evening.
Thanks, Chris. Nice job. David, thank you. Very thorough. Comments from the floor? I see none.
Yes, Amy over here.
Oh, yes, Amy.
Amy Barsanti, District 1. My apologies if you've already said this. Is the Board of Finance and Jack, your committee, comfortable if we get zero reimbursement from the state?
Yeah.
Yep, okay. To the extent that we either decide that there's a future event that we decide that might be in our best interest and not be beholden to the state to get a reimbursement, or the scope changes to the extent that it's not consistent with what we've submitted and they tell us we're no longer eligible. Just want to make sure that if we have zero reimbursement, we're still comfortable.
That's why we're appropriating
The full amount.
the full amount,
Okay.
which we would have to do anyway for them to buy it.
Yep, okay, thank you.
Yes, more importantly, we want the committee. Look, I've been around for a lot of school buildings, even though they've been far apart. We value engineered some things at Darien High School, and my daughter was the first freshman class in that. She's now turning 32, and 3 years ago, we finally put in the soundproofing in the auditorium that we value engineered out. And I promise you, it was a lot more expensive 3-4 years ago than what we originally had in. Oxbridge was told, build the school you think we need based upon the education specs. The same thing is being told to this committee. We do not want them coming back in 5 years saying, oops, we need to add another $2-3 million here or there. So, we're planning that this is good numbers. Matter of fact, I'm going to add something that they haven't been told. If in fact escalation prices go wild, and if you don't want prices, figure out how you get rid of Putin. The fact of the matter is if they need more money, we want them to come back rather than cut. Now, we don't expect that they're going to need that, but that's the approach we have to take. We want these schools to be built properly, and I would say, I can't speak for my whole committee because we didn't vote on that, but I'm more than comfortable with that, and speaking to the members of the Board of Finance, you know, David's here. He used to be on F&B before he went to the dark side of being on the Board of Finance, and that's a joke. The fact of the matter is that the Board of Finance would say the same.
More. Others from the floor? See none public? Looks like we're ready to vote. All those in favor, please rise. Now, I'll explain just briefly that we still have 2 more of these items to vote on. We have to vote on them separately because they're bonded separately. Sitting here and listening while everybody's counting, I will relate to you that you are looking at a person who is a homophile. In 1985, a homophile was someone who was willing to lie down in front of a bulldozer if it tried to take homeschool down. So when we listen to this tonight, we feel, hey, it was worth the fight. A fellow homophile. There aren't many of us left, folks, but
read this, so you got to be stuck if this is your computer.
what we're doing is reconciling the electronic voting system with the hand voting system in here.
Seth, that passed with no vote, with 0 no votes.
It passed. Next item, 22-18, appropriation of bond authorization for homes renovation. Love to hear that. Speaking for F&B, Jack Davis.
I promise this resolution is going much quicker. I'm Jack Davis, District 3, and Chair of the RTM Finance and Budget Committee. It'll go even quicker if I can read what I wrote. I move RTM Resolution 22-18 to increase the appropriation for the planning, design, and renovation of the Holmes Elementary School from $1,050,000 to $24 million, and to authorize the issuance of bonds and notes to finance the appropriation in the amount of $24 million. Is there a second? Beth Lane is seconding it. It's hard to see, but that's who it was. I now make a motion to amend the resolution after the third whereas to read: 1. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the representative town meeting of the town of Darien authorizes the Darien Public Schools to apply to the Commissioner of Administrative Services and to accept or reject a grant for the renovations or alterations and expansion of the Holmes Elementary School. 2. Now and therefore be it resolved that the 2021 Hindley Holmes Royal Schools Building Committee is hereby established as the building committee with regard to the renovations or alterations and expansions of the Holmes Elementary School. Again, they don't know how to spell Holmes in the first. We'll correct that. 3. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the representative town meeting of the town of Darien hereby authorizes at least the preparation and the schematic drawings and the outline specifications for the renovations and alterations and expansion of the Holmes Elementary School. Do I have a second? Amy over there. Seconded. We now vote on that, and I hand it back over to Seth.
Yes. Debate?
We can do
I see no hands. I see none.
voice vote.
Very good. We'll go with a voice vote. All those in favor, aye, please.
Aye.
Noes? Abstentions? I hear none, see none. I have a hand up. Yes, Mac. I have one abstention, Mac Patrick. Thank you. Motion passes. The amendment passes.
Okay, back to the report. One of the things that I do want to mention is that if you listen to the presentation that was here, I didn't want to mention this before, but there's a lot of things that they're doing that ultimately will have a reduction in the total school cost. As an example, when we get to Royal, every year an electrician goes into classrooms to ensure that the next classroom can have air conditioning because we have students that need it. When we're air conditioning the whole building, we do not have to do that anymore. Doing LED lightings throughout will have other savings. Fixing up the furnitures and the infrastructure and that should result in savings for our schools. So while we're not quantifying that, understand over the years, when we're doing the budget, we will be looking at the chair saying, and where are those savings? Now, back to the rest of this budget. As I said, this will be quicker. We evaluated the same way that we did the other one. The construction costs for homes are $16 million. The construction management fees of $500,000. The construction management reimbursements is $2,166,000. Building bond and issuances approximate $296,000. Contingencies are $1.8 million, being the escalation clause, being the 12 months to bid of $1.3 million. The construction manager contingency of 3% approximates $518,000. Owner's estimated soft costs, including contingency of 2.7. That includes an owner's contingency of $1,040,000 and bond issuance costs of $107,000. Total estimated costs are $23,438,221, which is rounded up to $24 million, and they get a whopping $560,000 extra in contingency. As I've mentioned before, what we're really doing is amending the resolution that we passed in April. So the resolution which we originally passed was $1,050,000. We're now amending and moving up to $24 million. Again, I'll mention that the RTM Finance and Budget Committee met on May 24th and voted unanimously in favor of this resolution. I did not mention, and I'm supposed to, here, that the estimated, you see when I try and rush, the estimated, nope, I don't have to do that. I gave you the estimated cost in the first thing. So I'm done.
Okay, other committees? Town officials? Okay. The body? RTM? No. Public? I see none. We're now ready to vote on the item. The resolution is amended. All those in favor, please rise.
By the way, I've already calculated what those savings should be. It's good, but it will save money. Here, doing, changing the code for the gym, which is really, and once we pass it, I'm getting a new placard from Mr. Gallen that says Board of Finance Chair, as opposed to Chair. And I'm paying for that out of my own money. I told Jen to order it, that's gonna be a gift. Well, I make so much money doing this job, you know, I can afford that. What? No. You know, you fight the battles you can win. That wasn't one of them. Yeah, I would have gone with the select person. Yeah, I would have gone with the select person. I just couldn't win that battle.
What's different?
I mean, no, that's changing, that was Jan. Yeah, like selectmen is more than being a select woman. I mean, I said if it didn't matter if it's a selectman or not, then we should just call everyone a select woman.
Okay, 22-18 passes. Next item is,
18.
that's what I said.
Oh, they said 15.
22-18 passed. Next is 22-19. On behalf of Finance and Budget, Jack Davis. We're on 19. Perfect.
I want to thank Jill for doing all of this on the budgeting things over here, so the amendments is not dealing with my inept technology skills. So, anyway, I'm Jack Davis. This is the last you're going to hear from me tonight. District 3, Chair of the Finance and Budget Committee. I move RTM Resolution 2219 to increase the appropriation for the planning, design, and renovation of the Royal School, elementary school, from $1,250,000 to $27,500,000 to authorize the issuance of bonds and notes to finance the appropriation in the amount of $27,500,000. Is there a second? I have Louisa again. Second, sorry, she raised her hand before Patty. Now that we have that, I move to amend the resolution after the third whereas, and it should read 1. Now therefore be it resolved that the representative town meeting of the town of Darien authorizes the Darien Public Schools to apply to the Commissioner of Administrative Services and to accept and reject a grant for the renovations, alterations, and expansion of the Royal School Elementary School. 2, now therefore be it resolved that the 2021 Hinley Homes Royal Schools Building Committee is hereby established as the building committee with regard to the renovations or alterations and expansion at the Royal Elementary School. And again, we'll correct how Holmes is spelled. 3, now and therefore be it resolved that the representative town meeting of the town of Darien hereby authorizes at least the preparation of schematic drawings and the outline specification for the renovations or alterations and expansion of the Royal Elementary School. Do I have a second? Michael Cassillo will be our second on that. We can now vote on that.
Debate? I see no questions. We're ready to vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. I see some people are going to stand up. I saw people. Opposed? And abstentions. I see none. Oh, yes, I have one abstention. Mac Patrick abstaining. The motion passes.
Yes, the amendment.
Yes. Keep going.
Okay. For the Royal, costs are, and construction costs are 19.3 million, construction management fees of 590,000, estimated construction management reimbursables of 2,166,000, building bond and insurances are approximate 296,000, contingencies are 2.6 million, where the escalation is 1.5 million, construction management contingency of 3% is 624,000. Owner's estimated soft costs approximate 2.9 million, which includes owner's contingencies of 1,226,000, bond issuance costs of 124,000. Total estimated cost for Hinley is $27,423,564, which is rounded up to 27.5, adding another 75,000 for contingencies. They came a little short in the year compared to the other two. Total contingencies approximate 3.38 million, or a bit over 12.6%. The RTM is amending its April resolution where we approved 1.25 million, and we're amending the prior resolution to now read 27.5 million. The RTM F&B committee met on May 24th and voted unanimously in favor of the resolution and recommends the same to the full RTM. And I want to thank everyone for putting up with some of my jokes again this year and this time. Thank you very much.
Other committees? Okay, town officials? Don't see any. The body at large? RTM members? I don't see anybody. The public? I don't see any. Ready to vote? All those in favor, please rise. This is the resolution as amended.
I'm sorry.
Item 22-19 passed. Next item is 22-20, Code Charter Degendrification for TGS&A Committee. Frank Kemp, Chair.
My name is Frank Kemp, and yes, I'm aware of the lateness of the hour, but this has been a long time coming, since 1969 or 70. I represent District 4. I'm chairman of the RTM Town Government Structure and Administration, or TGS&A Committee. I move RTM Resolution 22-20 to approve modifications to the town charter and code of ordinances to eliminate references to gender as to make the documents gender neutral. Is there a second? Thank you. If there are no objections, I propose to waive the full reading of the president. The second was out here, a couple of them.
Okay, second, Clara Sartori, for the record. Thank you.
Okay. The TGS&A Committee met virtually on Tuesday, May 31st, with 9 of 10 members present to review this request and the background material that has been prepared in support of the resolution. The background information was forwarded to all members of the RTM in the meeting package that was distributed last Thursday. The background material included information as to the origins of the project and approval at this meeting at June 21st, 2021 RTM. Examples of the changes in wording that are recommended by this resolution, a list of questions and answers concerning the matter, and a report as to the comments received at 2 public hearings on the issue in an in-person meeting on March 28th and a virtual meeting the next night on March 29th. And a 62-page report that specifies more than 450 changes that are recommended to over 160 sections of the town's ordinance, charter, and code. It should be noted that the majority of these changes are to sections of the code that date back to the 1968 compilation of laws of the town and the 1970s as major sections were added to the document. However, for legislation written in this century, such as the alarm regulations, blight, plastic bag, harbor commission, environmental and health and human services, there are very few or no changes to be made, as the writing styles and formats have changed for the better. After reviewing this background material, the TGS&A Committee voted unanimously to approve the resolution and recommended the approval of the resolution to the full RTM this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, Frank. Nice job. That took a long time to do, folks. Took a long time and a lot of effort to get that done. Looks easy, does hard. So, are there any other committees that missed to report? Town officials? See any? Debate from the floor, please. I see no hands. Public officials? The public? I see none. Looks like we're ready to vote. Yes, miss. Yeah. Sure. Remember to state your name and what district.
Yes, hello, I'm Christine Castles from District 4. I read the 62 pages of that document, and I really think that it makes a lot of sense where we're talking about slow down Darien. In this case, we need to speed up to get up to speed on having gender-neutral terminology in all our work. Our culture's changed, society has changed, and I think the documents need to reflect that. So I'm in total support of the changes. I did talk to Frank. I did have, though, one concern. I don't know if other people will have it. When I read "they" for a single person, that was confusing to me. As I was telling Frank, I work in mental health, and if a single person calls himself "they," I'm thinking of multiple personality disorder, now called DID, dissociative identity disorder. So that was confusing to me. I got it though now. The other thing was, it originally sounded grammatically incorrect when you're talking about a subject as starting in singular and then it goes to plural to they. But I found out that, in fact, the research in the Oxford Dictionary, the newest version, it is okay, it is grammatically correct. So that was a consolation to me. So I'm in support of that. Thank you.
Great, and thank you. Other comments from the floor? I see none. The public? I see none. Looks like we're ready to vote. All those in favor, please rise. I'll ask. I still got them on the tallying on the pluses. No votes, please. And abstentions, please. I see no no's, I see no abstentions. Okay. Folks, wait, because I have to announce the count.
Just my hearing aid up here.
Get out of your way. Folks, please stay till I get this announced. Thank you, everybody. The item 22-20 passed. If you want, I'll accept a motion to adjourn. All those in favor, please rise.